Back on Inside Tennessee with Robert Booker, who is a treasure in this community and author, historian. I read some of your bio just at the start, but it goes pretty long. It's lengthy. Don asked you a question before the break about the history of the black experience with Knoxville police in this city. What say you about that?
Well, it's interesting. I brought this book, Great American Speeches, because I was going to pull out a phrase from Dr. King's speech, the I Have a Dream speech. And then there he talks about unspeakable police brutality. This was 1968. The American public didn't know what that meant until 1993, when those officers pulled Rodney King out of his car in Los Angeles and beat the heck out of him. Mm-hmm. We in Knoxville and other places knew that had been going on for a very long time. The police here didn't beat people in the head or in the face so that cameras could pick up the blood and gore, but they beat people for the most part about the legs where cameras couldn't see that. And I think about those 5 black policemen in Memphis who really murdered Tyree. We had a black police officer in Knoxville in the late 40s and early 50s who terrorized the black community. Just the mention of his name caused you to shake in your boots, because that was going on right here in Knoxville. And I can also tell you that some of the punishment that happened to policemen for beating up people in Knoxville was kind of interesting. There was one man who was a police officer in the late 50s, beat up somebody. They transferred him to the fire department. In the early 1970s, another city policeman beat up an Alabama fan. They caught him on film. They transferred him to the police department. So they weren't dismissed, they weren't disciplined, but they just shifted them to the fire department.
Do you think the culture has improved or has worsened or just come more to light with the advent, of course, now with body cameras and cruiser cameras? Now we see it, and you brought up Rodney King, which really was the first time that someone managed to catch it on, I believe it was a cell phone camera or maybe even a handheld.
Yes.
But do you think, compare the culture then to now, and really nationwide, because I do think that largely KPD, local law enforcement, has improved the situation, but there are still problems.
Well, I think the police chief, Noel, is talking the right talk, and I think he's doing the right things. But sometimes the chief of police doesn't run the department. It's those sergeants and lieutenants and other people that give the orders, and those troopers take their messages from them and do what they want to do, because they know they're going to be protected. So I think there's some improvement, but I'm still concerned about the culture of the police department. I can understand why young black men don't want to be policemen, because they catch the dickens in the black community from being policemen, and they certainly are not treated fair in the police department. I've had policemen tell me that they've been discriminated against, but they don't say anything because when they need backup, nobody is there to back them up, so they keep their mouths shut.
I want to talk about where you grew up, from the bottom, and where was that? Tell our viewers where that was exactly. And then urban renewal came, and it wiped out a lot of the black businesses. And Knoxville in the turn of the century was known for having very successful black businesses.
Yes.
But I know by the time you were growing up, tell me what that was like, and what did urban renewal do to the black community? Well,
the east end of Magnolia was, probably the east end of Jackson Avenue was the bottom. And unfortunately, First Creek ravaged the area every time there was a heavy rain or a heavy melting of snow. Many of the houses there were substandard, no question about it, because I lived in a house myself without electricity for the first 14 years of my life. So there needed to be some slum clearance, no question about that. But in getting those federal grants, the people who were in charge of urban renewal just went whole hog, as you might say, and they saw a chance to get even more federal dollars. and they just ravaged the black business community. At least 117 black businesses were destroyed. Many of them had been there for 50 years or more, because it was an area set aside for the black business community, because we couldn't operate anywhere else. But urban renewal destroyed all that. It destroyed 14 black churches, and they had to rebuild or buy some of the old abandoned white churches. Hundreds of homes were taken. The black community has never and will never recover from the evils of urban renewal.
And they weren't paid a fair price.
Well, you see, that was the real problem. They gave fair market value rather than replacement value. If your house was worth $10,000, they gave you 10, but to find a comparable house in another neighborhood, it would cost $20,000. But you didn't get that $20,000, so you were put in the hole trying to buy a new home, trying to reestablish a new business, and building a new church, which was a triple whammy. So, and people just couldn't afford to do that. Many moved into public housing because of that atrocity.
I want to also ask you about the Civic. I heard you talking on a podcast about the Civic Coliseum when it opened, and it was part of the urban renewal, I assume. But it was integrated. So it was the first place that you felt that you could go and have full access to shows and dances and that kind of thing.
That's correct. The Civic Coliseum opened in 1961, and I was a junior at Knoxville College, maybe going into my senior year. And I called the Civic Coliseum office to see if there would be a section for Negroes. And they said, oh no, we're going to open on an integrated basis. And I told everybody on campus, people were jumping up and down because Chilhowee Park was still segregated.
One day a year.
Well, no, we had gone from one day a year to one day a week. Black could go to Chilhowee Park every Thursday by that time. A city-owned park, city-owned facility that discriminated against us. So the Civic Coliseum was kind of a godsend, where we could go and see the famous people coming to perform, or many of our groups had their dances there. I went to a dance at the Coliseum every weekend because of the social clubs that had their fundraisers there.
We've got to take another quick break on Inside Tennessee. We're back with more of Mr. Booker right after this.